Hello and welcome to the Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. I am your host, Ty Christensen. Hark! Hark! Tritons! May Neptune strike ye dead, winds low. We've got Jordan Christensen on the pod.
All right, I like your cooking.
All right, have it your way. And we've got Cameron Mickle on the pod.
How long have we been on this island? 5 days?
And we've got Bryce Legler.
Boredom makes men to villains.
Right?
Guys, today we are discussing this movie called... Preach.
Or the part where...
No
what?
truer words.
What?
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 No,
What?
that's what I'm
What?
saying. Guys, today we are discussing Lighthouse. This movie came out in 2019. It was directed by our boy, Robert Eggers.
Your
Anyone
boy.
forget? He's my boy, Robert Eggers. This guy directed The Witch. You guys remember we reviewed that on the podcast?
Yeah, after
Little
maybe it's
babies
because I
getting
just
mashed
watched,
up into lotion.
Maybe it's because I just watched The Witch, but I just got this like very overlooming dark feeling in this movie. Like I guess I already had that, but I just kept thinking about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are like possessed by demons or something because they're psycho.
So good. So good. Guys, directed by Robert Eggers, written by Robert Eggers and his bro, Max Eggers. Let's get into what was it like watching this movie for the... Oh, wait, and it stars Robert Pattinson, William Defoe, and that's pretty much it. There's a few other people like Valeria Caraman, who's a mermaid, and Logan Hawks, who's Ephraim Winslow, the real Ephraim Winslow, and everyone else is not accredited. Oh, they're like Tender Mate, Sully Siegel. There is actually the seagull in the movie is a credited actor. That freaking evil seagull, man. Very ominous. All right, great. Let's get into what was it like watching this movie for the first time or rewatching it for the podcast. Let's start with you, Jordan.
Oh yes. Okay, so I saw this in the theaters when it came out, and it was seriously one of the best experiences in the theater ever. It was, I think, my favorite movie of that year, and Midsummer coming in right under.
Oh, take it easy. All right.
But I seriously, it was such a joy. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am so happy that they're making these kinds of movies. Like I love the feeling of like an old-timey feel movie, but still made with modern actors and it has like more of a modern feel. Like I don't know if that makes any sense because it's just very slick. It feels very like polished is a good word. It just feels so good.
Posh?
Yes.
Punctual.
I love this movie, guys. It made my top 100. I just love it.
Well, good. All right, Cameron, why don't you go? Don't dare say that you don't like it.
No, I don't care if you don't like it. I love it.
No, I was just kidding. Cameron, go ahead. What was it like watching it first time rewatching it for the pod?
So watching it the first time was kind of for the pod. I didn't have a chance to fully rewatch it again. I just watched some video essays to help for my brain understand it. But watching the first time, I watched it because it's been on my watch list for a while, and I watched it on the airplane, which I do not recommend watching this in a place where random strangers could be looking at what the F you're watching, because there were some scenes that I was dimming my screen because I was like, what the
Did it involve a little wooden mermaid figurine?
yeah, effing just the random scenes. I was so effing uncomfortable.
Yeah, multiple, Cameron. How about when he's looking through the
shingles of the roof, watching William Defoe, probably? Who knows, dude? I don't know if it was but something. Yikes. Yeah. And then he's like, oh my gosh, he's like, was he really that surprised?
No.
Like that
or
like,
the other
like,
part, Ty, when he's like
thing he's ever seen.
Standing under him up above the light and just like the liquid
slime come down. I'm gonna assume it's not tentacle slime. I'm pretty sure that's straight up. This movie is messed the freak up.
I loved it so much. I made all my roommates watch it with me, make them feel uncomfortable. I loved it.
I make my wife watch with no context. I make her watch the Hark monologue. Oh. Yes. The seagull scene.
I made Grant. That's the only scene that Grant's seen from it because I was watching it and I was like, Grant, want to see the most beautiful cinematic thing you've ever seen in your life? And I just showed him just fetching Robert Pattinson beating a seagull to death.
See, I heard plenty of people say that nothing happens in this movie, and I'm like, I would disagree. If you ask a certain Sully Seagull, I think a lot happened for him in this movie. Bryce, how about you, man? What was it like watching it for the first time and rewatching it for the podcast?
Well, I didn't finish what I was saying watching it the first time.
I'm sorry, Cameron. I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Cameron.
You
Let's
just
get back to
started
you.
going off on the other weird scenes that are in the movie.
That's right. We somehow we got sidetracked with all the.
Yeah. Anyway, so watching this on the airplane was, especially when I was like a row away from mom and dad, was definitely a risky decision.
What is this filth you're watching? It's not filth, mommy. It's lovely. It's Moby Dick by Herman Melville.
Moby what?
Moby what? It's just called Lighthouse. It's a light-hearted movie about a lighthouse. Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
Brilliant.
well, I love how you said brilliant. I haven't said anything. I just loved. I thought there was a lot of really cool cinematic things about it, and just watching it, I was just like, I was in total shock and awe of just kind of like, what the fudge did I just watch? And the video essays help explain a lot of things, so I definitely recommend watching the video essays after this movie. It's another.
I'm curious. I haven't seen any of them. You'll have to explain to me the meaning of this movie, because I don't think I derived any, except boredom makes you turn into Jack Torrance from The Shining. That's it. That's the only message I got, is boredom turns men into evil people. I'm like, I wasn't bored watching this movie, so that was comforting. I'm not going to turn into Jack Torrance watching this, because I was very entertained in this film. So I find that really interesting, Cameron. So you'll have to share what the deeper meaning is, because I have so many questions. How about you, Bryce? What was it like watching it for the first time or rewatching it for the podcast?
Everything Jordan said, just opposite.
Opposite, yeah.
Yeah, just I can see how some people would like it, but so I watched it when it came out because I love artsy. You know, I wasn't a fan of The Witch. I hated that movie. I thought I went and took my daughter to it at the theater, and it was the worst $18 I've ever spent. So when I found out this was from the same guy, I was like, okay, we'll give it a chance. We'll watch it. And so the first time I didn't enjoy it, and then I watched it again to freshen up, and I hated it even more the second time. So, but I mean I think there are some redeeming qualities to it. It's just not. It's in the words of Austin Powers, it's not my bag, baby.
It's not my bag.
Yeah, but Spider-Man 2 is your bag. I gotcha.
Well, dude, not Spider-Man 2. No,
the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I was going to say Spider-Man 3, dude.
I would take Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 2. I would take the worst of those, and I would still say it was better than this.
Yeah, I want to make one thing very clear. I do love this movie. I am unabashed.
I feel like I just offended Jordan though. Like,
oh no! I don't like. You don't have to like this movie. Like I don't.
In order to come on the podcast again,
yeah.
No.
I mean, no. I know. I'm just teasing. I
unabashedly like this movie, but I can't really define why I like it. Like, narratively speaking, I think at the halfway mark, it turns into The Shining, where there's unexplicable things. It's bonkers. It's crazy. Time is messed with. Like, is it supernatural? Is it just completely just unreliable narrator? So I don't know. I have a lot of questions about this movie, but I love it because I can't explain it, and I was really fascinated by it, and it left me. It was one of the few movies that after I watched it, I was still thinking about it, and I think that's pretty cool in a time where I watch a superhero movie and I don't think twice about it after I leave the theater. Except how much I disliked it, Black Widow, looking at you, Black Widow. But I really like this movie because I was thinking about it after I watched it. And there's not too many movies that I'm like, what did I just watch? What was the meaning of that? So I kind of like that. I think it's good that we have movies like this that counterbalance the structure of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. So we got to get into two of our favorite things. Cameron, why don't you start us off? Two of your favorite things from this movie.
I know it's weird, but I mean, my favorite scene, I just love the seagull. I just feel like it's just so out of nowhere. But I think it's so cool how it's like looped into the like his psychological prophecy, whether you believe it's psychological or not. And I just thought
it's a curse.
I thought it was just super funny.
The souls of dead sailors at sea.
Like, I just thought it was a very necessary kind of mood lightener for give you like kind of 30 seconds to just be like, what the fudge, and laugh, and then like, okay, I'm ready for another hour.
You were laughing when he's banging the seagull against
I thought it was so
tree.
It was just so excessive.
Oh my gosh.
It was such excessive force that I'm pretty sure it's dead. He just kept swinging away. I was like,
it was full blown like psychotic Robert Pattinson. Yeah, going for sure.
And then
I didn't see him do that in Twilight.
I think what this movie really benefits from is this kind of, for me, kind of like an Arrival, where like the movie Arrival, where I enjoy it more after like not watching it the first time, but like watching video essays explain it, because it gives me a greater appreciation for it. Just because I think they did a lot of great things for the movie. I love like the black and white and all these things that like I later appreciated. So I just think it's such a great film. I don't think it's necessarily such a good movie, because it's like not something it's same thing with like, I feel like Zodiac. I would never go show someone like, hey, have you seen The Lighthouse? But like it's one of those movies where
Do you want to watch it with me? Do you want to sit next to me while we watch it?
but it's one of those movies that like the when you look back on it, just there's so much great parts about it and like such deep film that it's really pretty. And especially because like this is like partially, it's not officially based off of, but it's like partially based off of like a true story of these 3 sailors who mysteriously disappeared while working at a lighthouse.
Very interesting. How about you, Bryce? 2 of your favorite things from this movie?
I think Willem Dafoe is by far the shining light in this movie for me. His commitment to the role, his commitment to his lines, he is so believable. In a movie where, like I said, as I stated before, I have several issues with it as a film, but like his commitment to the role was very refreshing, and from his accent to his walk to, I mean, even when he's talking as he's getting buried at the end and the dirt's shoveling, especially the second time watching it, I was waiting to see some kind of, as if the dirt got in his eyes or anything. Like it was so committed to it. So I thought that was phenomenal. And I've always loved him as an actor, but this movie did make me love him even more. Like, this guy can't do any wrong. And then I think the second thing I did, I mean, it kind of to steal yours, Ty, the fact that you do think about it after. I did like that about the movie, where it was still like, once the movie ended, you're looking for a reason, like, okay, why did I just spend 2 hours of my life on that? What was that talking about? What did that mean? Was it really...
What is Robert Eggers trying to say?
Yeah, and so it is thought-provoking in that sense. And so I think those are the 2 things I did like about it.
That's great. Jordan, how about you? 2 of your favorite things?
I guess I started to talk about it a little bit. I just think he does period pieces masterfully. He kind of immerses you in a world, and I mean, just down to what was already mentioned, the way William Defoe speaks, and on the other end, what's the Twilight guy's name?
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson, how he speaks as well. I love how they speak. I love just feeling like I'm so immersed. I get lost in the film watching it, and that's what I want. I just don't want to be constantly reminded that I'm, watching a film. But it's just so fun to be these characters. Like, I love when a director like lets actors act, and he gives them really fun characters. And so I just think, which goes into the second thing, and obviously I already mentioned that both William Defoe and Robert Pattinson, their performances were unbelievably good. I loved their performances, and I cannot wait for Robert Pattinson to be the new Batman. I just think him in this and Good Time are some of his greatest performances. And
don't forget about The King.
Oh, and in The King, that's right. He's the
you got
French
a tiny
guy.
No.
That's
a great movie. I highly recommend The King. Have you seen that on Netflix, Bryce, with Timothée Chalamet?
I don't think he's going to like it, Ty. Based on his track record, I don't know.
Yeah,
Wait, what haven't I liked that I should have liked?
Oh, no, okay, not Wonder Woman. What's the chick, the Captain Marvel?
Oh, Captain Marvel.
You like, which is horrible.
I actually haven't seen
movie.
it, so I haven't seen it, but I know a lot of people trashed on it.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2, garbage.
It's not
Richard
garbage.
Kelly's,
I liked it when I was in the theater. I'm on your side.
Richard Kelly's movie.
Richard Kelly. Oh, the what's it called? Not A Place Beyond the Pines. What's it called? It's the Pimps Don't Cry or whatever. Pimps Don't Commit Suicide.
Oh, did you watch it?
No, not yet. Not yet.
But I've listened to people talk about it, and somebody ranked it as the worst movie of all time. I don't know. And I was reading all your recommendations too, and they have horrible like reviews.
I see. I don't pay
Jordan,
attention.
we reviewed Good Burger.
I don't pay attention to reviews. I just whether I like it or not. That's how I go. You know.
It's
Okay.
yeah. We
But
grew up with
that's
Good
okay.
Burger. We review. Yeah.
I'm just saying all the things you like, and then the things you're saying you hate are just like opposite of what we've been saying. That's why I said that he might not like it. That's all.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd be interested. You should
I'm
check it out.
open. You know, like
I like you've got insightful things to say, and I wasn't trying to attack you. I'm sorry. So.
Oh no! I was just saying part of my. Let me just defend Captain Marvel just because I love Brie Larson, so that has a lot more to do with it than I think the story. But I still like the story. But you know,
I liked her in Room.
several fantasies are fulfilled every time I watch that movie. That's all I'm saying.
Well, there you go. I think I'm starting to understand you a lot more. It's like your picks for your movies are like, I don't like any of these movies. And they're like, but see, that's the same with Cameron. It's like if it stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Rachel McAdams, Cameron's like, it's my favorite movie of all time. And you're like,
False doctrine.
like-
false doctrine.
Cameron's like, it's got my wife and my husband in it. We're all like, wow, Cameron, I didn't think it was that good of a movie. But you're like, yes, it was good. It's got my favorite people in it. And they're just such a delight to watch. So that goes into my favorite thing. I love the aspect ratio of this movie. I
Yes.
watch it on an iPad. It's weird because it literally fills the square screen, which is weird because usually you got the widescreen going. It's like perfectly made for iPads. I know that sounds like a sin. I watched it on a nice big, it's like 58 screen TV. Not that big, but someday when I got my theater room up and running, I'll watch it there. But this movie's great. I love watching it, the black and white, the setting. My second favorite thing is I just love watching daily chores from lighthouse keepers. I've never seen it. It's something I'm so unversed in. The only other lighthouse I've seen in a movie was from Pete's Dragon, which really isn't that great of a movie. I loved seeing that, just the daily chores and how hazardous it was, being lowered on a pulley, held by a cripple is not the best, it doesn't pass the safety test or whatever, and it snaps ultimately. So, hey ho, blow the man down. Made me think of Blow the Man Down also. I just love seeing daily chores from lighthouse keepers. It just makes me laugh. Like that whole seaside lifestyle just seems so rough and difficult, and so I don't know, I did a really good job at just immersing me in that world, and very interested to see what the daily chores are. And I love knowing, like, in the end, I heard it was like supposed to be like a drama mystery thriller, so I remember thinking like, okay, it's a scary movie, and then I watched it, I'm like, oh, this is more like The Shining. And then as they get drunk and they go in for that kiss, I'm like, oh, this is Brokeback Mountain, which is just scary. So it's like The Shining meets Brokeback Mountain and The Lighthouse. Beautiful movie. So
I mean,
loved it.
OSHA definitely got a few calls or emails after that movie.
Dude, just like, he's like, oh, lower me slowly. He's like, oh, stop squirming. He's like, I'm not squirming. Just breaks, the pulley just snaps. He falls like another, 20 feet. And then he doesn't even go down there to see if he's okay. He just wakes up and a seagull's pecking at his leg. Like, anyway, I'm just like, goodness gracious.
When we get into deeper whatever about the movie, I want to talk about my opinion of that whole part. I don't know if it's getting too deep too quick.
Oh,
but
interesting.
When we get it, if I don't bring it up, remind me, because
let's do it right now.
Rewatching it. So I think this is my own interpretation. I know it's not what the director said or whatever. Yeah,
right.
But honestly, like rewatching it again, I almost believe it even more, or to me, I want to believe it even more. Is at that point when he falls. Everything from that until the end of the movie, it happens in his head while he's laying there. And then at the end of the movie, when so he falls, he breaks something, he does whatever, he's laying there. And then when the water comes in from the storm, it washes him out to where he ends at the end of the movie and the seagulls are pecking him. Like he never left that spot. And I had that thought the first time I watched it, like, dude, I wonder if everything, because really at that point, after that, is when all the weirdness really starts to happen. And
Unreliable,
all the madness and the bird and blah, blah, all of that stuff. And then he kind of is laying in the same position as he is at the end at that point. And I mean, so there were so many things where, again, then rewatching it, I was watching it with that in mind, like, okay, let me rewatch it now. If that at that point would it make sense if that's really what happened?
That is interesting because, again, like the last we see of him before he's there, he's inexplicably at the bottom of the lighthouse because he tries to go up to the light, screams manically, and falls down the whole entire lighthouse. And he's at the bottom of the inside of the lighthouse.
And then all of a sudden,
we see him.
He's
outside at the waterfront getting his innards picked naked. And I think that's interesting that you say that because that is the scene. It's that, and when he's beating the seagull up, where you first get a sense of ominous. Again, he's beating the seagull to death outside of the, is it the cistern or whatever they put the, is it like salt or whatever they purify the water that they have or whatever?
It's like some kind of chlorine or whatever he's putting in
right.
there.
Yeah, to clean out the water tank or whatever. And he beats the seagull to death. The wind changes and William Defoe witnesses the murder of the seagull, which he warns him. Seagulls contain the spirits of like
sailors
that died at sea. So don't.
But if you notice
when
he wakes up after that, the seagull's pecking him, and at the end, the seagulls are pecking him. And so I kind of felt like okay, dude, like he's there, he's passed out, and there's a lot where did Willem Dafoe even really exist? Why didn't he go help? Was it all in his head? All that kind of stuff. So he's painting it. He falls. There's no one to help him. He's there. And that seagull pecking him was kind of a jar back into reality for a second. He sees it and then he passes back out again and then it continues to imagine the last half of the movie. So
that's a really interesting read.
In what I did look up, I didn't see anybody else with any of that take, and I don't know, Cameron, if any of those video things that you saw had anything where anybody else kind of had that take, but that's the one thing I kind of pulled from it was like that to me would kind of I think redeems somewhat of the movie if I look at it that way.
That's interesting. I like it too because it does help explain away because there are 2 cuts to black that I can definitively remember, and it's when he falls, he clearly passes out, you hear him hit the ground, and then it cuts. Then he does appear to wake up, sees the seagull, and at the end, after he passes out on the lighthouse, he falls down the stairs, it goes black again, and then he wakes up with seagulls pecking at his innards. I mean, that's a totally fair reading, and I think it's interesting because I like what you said about is William Defoe, did he ever exist? I love the scene where you find out where his true name was. He take on this false identity of Ephraim Winslow, and it turns out that was actually just a logger that he took his identity, and he tried to make a new life for himself. And it's great because he finds out his name is Thomas, and he goes, "I'm Thomas as well." That's a really obvious, purposeful choice that was taken by the director. Whether or not that William Dafoe's character is the same person, you just looked like you were in disbelief, or you didn't like the theory. Do you not think that they could be the same person or anything like that? Or
no, there's a ton of things it could be. I honestly love how many options and having how dubious and how crazy the ending is and manic,
right?
And
even direct contradictions of what we see on camera is what he says. Literally, William Defoe is running with the axe overhead, chasing what we see on film, and then after they get into the house, he's like, "Don't kill me! You were just chasing me outside with the axe." And you're like, "What the fudge is going on?"
Yeah, he's like, "You broke the boat," and it's like,
"You broke the boat."
Excuse
He's
me?
like, "You were the one that hacked the boat." What we saw, you were the one that hacked the boat, and you blamed him for chasing you with the axe when it was clearly William Dafoe's character with the limp running. It was great iconic imagery where he's just running with the axe overhead, very reminiscent of The Shining, and muttering to himself. He's literally yelling after Winslow. So I don't know if Robert Eggers is a big fan of The Shining.
Oh, he is. I listened to interviews, Ty, and he said The Witch is literally his rendition of The Shining.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting to hear him say The Witch, because I thought this movie had more.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah. And the whole ambiguous lighthouse, what is meant by this? So I think it's really cool that we can all take these different interpretations away from it. And in the end, the death of the author, right? It doesn't really matter what the director is saying or what the biggest critic that's most skillful at reading the movie. We can all kind of take our own different interpretations from this movie. I like that. So
well, I loved how crazy this movie made me feel by the end. I just felt absolutely insane. I loved it. I thought it was great.
And my heart was breaking when they find out that the ship didn't come. They're like, "Oh, we might have slept through it." Again, there's so much question.
Yeah.
He goes, "Do you know how long we've been asleep? We were asleep for weeks." And then it's they're not coming. It just gave me so much dread for these two people because they're in ultimately a very perilous predicament where they have to ration their food. They're going crazy because they haven't had the touch of a woman in a long time. They're running out of food and rations. They're starting to go crazy. I just liked all that, and their relationship is getting strained. Like, ultimately, they're fighting more and more, and they're getting at each other's throats. Robert Pattinson is really poised to murder him at one scene where he's lying in bed. He has the knife, and he's ready to cut him. But because he snaps awake, it saved his life. And William Defoe doesn't realize how close he got to being murdered right then and there. It's crazy. It's crazy. Out of all the movie theories that you watched, Cameron, was there one that you particularly liked or one that you agreed with?
Yeah, no, there was a bunch of things I thought were super interesting. The one thing it talked about, there was this one instance where 3 sailors were like, the last log they ever made was that they had terrible, or it was really bad weather, and then like 3 weeks after they had made that log, people came by to like check on them or to relieve them from their post, and they all had mysteriously disappeared, which was just like really sketch and weird. And then I don't know, I thought a lot of theories were super interesting because a lot of it has like super like a lot of symbolism towards like Greek mythology, because there's a lot of things that talked about where there was a son, I'm trying to remember, I don't remember who it is, but like that gave fire to humans. He was caused to internal torment by being have his insides be pecked at by birds and torn out to the brink of death wow. And then they would like leave him alive so he could like regenerate back, and then they would do that again and again. And so that's what there was like symbolism by Robert Pattinson wanting to like give that light and the eternal power of the light to other people. And there's just like a bunch of kind of cool theories like about that I thought were super interesting, and I just loved like how each shot it shows, and that's because it gave me such an eerie feeling. That's what I thought was such an impressive part of the film, is kind of like Jordan talked about. I don't feel like I'm watching a movie, like I feel like I'm just being put in this universe, and I'm just like. And Jordan knows how much I love movies where it's like you're questioning what is and isn't real, like Fetching Shutter Island. I'm just like, did anyone else see that Fetching Tom?
I thought that too, at the opening scene with the ship approaching and the fog, like the ship and the foghorns and everything. I'm like, oh, it's literally Shutter Island, the opening.
Yeah, and so I thought that was kind of super. I love movies like that, and so I just thought that was really interesting. Kind of makes you question. Comes down to Ty's favorite thing, the unreliable narrator, and it kind of just comes down to who you believe. And so I think it's super interesting, and that's what I think this movie does a really good job of, is kind of like being like, well, neither of them are good people. And so it's like, and so it makes it very even to where you're like, man, I got to choose who I believe, because neither of them are like truly very good people.
I mean, we find out, because Robert Pattinson calls out William Defoe's character saying, like, you're lying. Like, you didn't eat grass. How can you eat grass with no teeth?
Yeah.
You just swallow it whole. And they have a good laugh about that. But it's like, he lies about how hard his life was. You know, he's like, you said you broke your leg, then it was gangrene. Like, which is it? So he's making up all these stories. He's an unreliable person. He's got an unreliable past.
Well, then also,
you find out that Robert Pattinson, he lied about his identity and took the identity of somebody else. He's an imposter.
Also, movies I hate and love like this, that I hate it but love it when they mess with your visual. Is when they show you scenes where you're like, did that just happen? Like, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why'd you show me that?
The mermaid chick and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like, what are dreams and what is real?
Yeah, like when they blur that line, I think
pulling a head out of the lobster pot, dude.
Yeah,
seeing the other,
or when he sees like tentacles and stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, is that real?
In the Lighthouse,
is that imagination? Is that just him?
We never see him waking up from a dream, you know.
So I think that is a really good job. It kind of is like it comes at night too, where it's like you don't know. There's not like super precise like cuts in between reality and like what's not reality. So I think that's another thing that did a really good job.
I liked, Cameron, what you said about the lighthouse, like how William Defoe, it's like the light is mine. Like I go up at night and I spend my time with the light.
Yes, I love how many secrets he has.
I'm just up there to some seaweed monster, or to the lighthouse itself. He's drinking naked up on the top of the tower, and he's just like, "What the freak is going on up there?" Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and I love he like creates this obsession. He needs to get in there. Just let me in there. Just
let me see it, please.
Well,
like,
it's the classic like don't look down scenario where you tell someone not to look down, their instant desire is to automatically look down, and so that's why
I love it too.
You can't go in there. Because
tend your duties.
And he gives him all the
ways
that he doesn't
he keeps everything locked, and he just like it just has so many like hidden secrets and stuff. Yeah, treats him like an animal, which is why I thought it was kind of insane that Robert Pattinson, like that's when I was like, oh, maybe he is insane when he was like treating him like a dog and making him crawl around on all fours. But I was listening to all the stuff leading up to that, and it's like the other guy was treating him like that the whole time. And so it's like, he essentially, I don't know if he was driven insane and he was driven to that point. And I thought that was kind of interesting that you always rag on people acting crazy in movies, but they go absolutely insane by the end. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that bothered you or if you were like, this is such a good acting.
Yeah, it was both. Like, well, one, it was super scary. Like, usually when people do crazy in movies, like Brad Pitt and 12 Monkeys, it turns cringeworthy. Now, granted, I love Brad Pitt. I think he's one of the finer actors we have. But what I'm saying is it's cringeworthy as opposed to this movie. It was unnerving.
Yes.
And very scary. Like Robert Pattinson laughing at the end at the lighthouse, like, and he's like screaming. It's like in pain. Like when he was like in the shed trying to with this little mermaid figurine, he like shrieks out in pain. Like he's like literally hurting himself. Like it's really messed up. Like, and it's really painful to watch. And it was so unnerving and unsettling. I was just like, again, they are being driven mad, but like I actually had so much empathy for them because I was just like it wasn't cringeworthy. It was just so upsetting. Like it was just like so bleak.
Well, it's
so
like
sad.
127 Hours, Ty, when he's like looking at footage of those girls because he's so like, I just want to escape from here, like being trapped.
Terrible predicament, yeah. And they're all alone, they're isolated. All they have is drink to keep them company, and they both hate each other. There's even the scene where they nearly kiss. I mean, like literally, like they're so starved for any physical affection. You think they're about to, will they, won't they? And then they get into another fight, and you think that they're going to keep killing each other. They keep fighting. They're getting rougher and rougher every night. They're like, it's going to come to a boiling point. And he even tells them, he's like, there's a few moments I thought you were going to kill me, but you're all right.
And I love that they don't have water,
like, no.
and so they go crazier because they keep drinking more and more alcohol.
Yeah.
It's so good.
The predicament reminds me of like the mission where you're just stuck doing something.
Dude, let me go. Hey.
When you're stuck doing something that you just like, sometimes you're like, man, and like, especially sometimes with a person that you're like, don't know very well, you don't like. And I think that's what I think the film does a really good job too, is they don't show you anything like preceding it. Nothing. And so like that's what does a really good job of just like placing you in there, because the same thing with real world interactions where it's like someone can tell you a story but you have no idea what is true, what isn't. And so that's why all of the information you find out, you're finding out together like it's a real interaction with a real person. Because when he's telling him like, oh, that's why if you were to find out this person it has a different name, it would make you trust him a lot less. You're like, what else have you been lying to me about? Because then you're like, if you can't even tell me your truthful name, and why did you change your name? Maybe because you killed somebody that you worked with? And it's like, it just starts to lose credibility. So I just think that did another layer of just like putting you in not only Robert Pattinson's shoes, but then also they did a good job of like kind of showing you why William Defoe's like, man, you sketchy.
Hey, Karen.
Why'd you spill your beans?
Yeah, don't spill your beans to me, Winslow. Love it. Kevin, you're all right, man. You're like a whale's.
You're going to clean it. Shine.
Like shinier than a whale's. Oh, it's so funny. Guys, the things they say. Oh, boy, if I had a steak, that steak, dude. I was like, what the fudge is he not? And then he's like, William Defoe's like, oh. He's like, you don't like me cooking? You're fond to be lobster, ain't you?
And I can't stand your gosh dang fats.
Oh my gosh, guys, so funny.
Wild.
I love how
wild.
they speak. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I watched the interview
Futro
too
flailing.
of William Defoe talking about the movie, and he just like, because he had reached out to, what's his name?
He should have been nominated. I'm sorry for an Oscar.
He reached out to Robert Eggers and was like, hey, because he watched The Witch and loved it. He said, hey, next work you do, like, let me know. And so,
oh, that's awesome.
and Robert
I love when
Eggers,
an actor
as soon as Robert Eggers like had a project, he said, William Defoe, here's the because William's like, I want something. And it was funny because Robert Pattinson, he talked to Robert Eggers and was like, I only would want to do something with you if it's like really crazy. I'm done doing like other things. I only want to do something if it's really crazy. And then
He's like,
and then
say no more.
Yeah, he read the script and he was like, wow, this is beyond crazy. Like,
And he's like, maybe I didn't think you'd be going that far.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. I love it. I love the drinking songs they sing, you know, the hurrah, me yellow girls, doodle, let me go. Like they're just like dancing and pounding the table and dance. It's like, I don't know. I just like.
Well, did you recognize him singing that one song? This is the same song they sing in Shanghai Noon. I don't know. I can't do it.
Was it? I didn't know that.
Anyways.
All the drinking game songs, right?
Yeah.
Not something that we Mormons on this podcast know anything about. But anyway, I just thought it was great. You know, it's bad luck sparring with the seabird. There's just so many good quotes in this line.
And I
you know?
love
Put your flailing, lad.
I love that he tells stories constantly. He's always telling stories. And you're like, which ones are true, which ones are not, which ones are just like from history and folk.
Winslow, why'd you leave the north? The sawdust itching your Oh, I love it. It's so funny. He's just constantly insulting him, And
did you guys do subtitles? Could you understand what he was saying? Or
I didn't have subtitles.
I watched the first time without subtitles. I watched it with subtitles this next time.
I didn't. I kind of wish I did, but I like getting lost in the film.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to known. Sometimes they said some things that I'm like, whoa, I did not catch what he just said.
But I think it's very interesting though, because again, just ultimately the movie becomes very unreliable once the one-eyed junior. Okay, so real quick, my callback to The Shining was very obvious remember when Jack Torrance goes into the hotel owners or whatever, the guy that's gonna like give him the tour, he's like, oh, the last hotel keeper that we had, he ended up going mad and murdered his whole family. And it literally is what happens in the movie. And you're like, does this just keep happening? And are they okay with it? Or is this just is it on a loop? And I thought that in this movie, when he says, he's like, what happened to your one-eyed mate or whatever? He's like, he went mad and he ended up killing himself. And he started seeing things. Yeah. He started saw sea monsters and sirens. And literally, Robert Pattinson has had these dreams. And he's like, oh, that's just silly. Those are just wives' tales or whatever. And I'm like, you're literally having dreams of this. Like, why don't you come forward or be like, okay, I got to get out of here because I'm already having visions of this stuff. Like, it's just freaky, Anyway, I just found that really interesting because, again, are they just doomed to repeat it? And
I thought it was low of his. I mean, goodness gracious, if William Defoe isn't like a perfect character, I know somebody at work like that. Not at my job now, but just people I've met in the past.
Somebody that would drink, lamp lighter oil or whatever.
No, but somebody that
fluid?
Is so old school and so strict and just like, and he wrote down like that he should have severance without pay like that. I'm sorry. Oh. What a horrible man. I would lose it on him. Goodness gracious.
Oh, don't get in the way of Jordan and his money. He'll kill you.
No, but I think that's a good reason why you saw him get put past the brink of like insanity, because it's like he's being all kind to him and then up front, and then it's like, and behind his back, not only is he saying like he's insubordinate, but it's like he shouldn't even be paid for his torture time on the island, which you don't even know how long he's been on the island for. Even though, and he intentionally got him drunk to miss that ship that came. So you're like, what else?
I didn't even think of that. I intentionally, maliciously made him drunk
so that
because he does say he's like start drinking, and he never drank before. He's like, I don't drink.
No, and he didn't want to, and he's like, and it'll make you dumb, and he starts laughing. You're clever, you're good.
Yeah. Yep, he warns them the reason he doesn't, but he does it because he's like, I don't think they're going to have an issue if you drink, if you, on the last night or whatever, and he sleeps through the ship arriving. That's pretty crazy. I never thought of it, but.
It just reminded me a lot of Ex Machina.
I don't want to be the party pooper here, but this is one of the major issues I had with this whole movie. And some of the things you guys are talking about. It's funny, I was just sitting back listening to you guys talk about it, and I'm like, whoa, I enjoy listening to your guys' takes on it, but I'm like a lot of those same takes that you guys are saying that is like really good, and this was those are things where I'm looking at you mentioned the whole dog thing, that was so out of character for that guy to flip flop, and now all of a sudden he gets punched in the face a couple of times, and now he's going to start barking like a dog. Like that bugged me so much. It bugged me more the second time too, because I'm like, bro, you're like I sir and I captain, and you're like this guy, and you'll take this whole lighthouse back together, and you'll take it apart, and you'll put it back together if I tell you to, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden he gets punched in the face, and now he's barking like a dog. Like, it didn't make any sense. It wasn't true to his character at all. That all of a sudden he would be that he's going to go from that. If you're like that and you're that age and you're that old, whether you're lying or whatever, you're not going to flip flop like that. You're still going to, you're going to have to hit me in the face or nearly kill me to get me to bark like a dog. Like, there's too much pride there for this guy that owns the light. And so I felt like that whole thing from that point on was just pure ridiculous. Because it didn't fit his character. I didn't feel like it was like, oh, wow, this is really neat. They're going crazy. Like, it was too far-fetched at that point.
No, well, that's why there's two reasons I think why it happened the way it did is because he kept telling him, no, it was you that broke the boat. It wasn't me. And so we're to believe then that maybe he was actually the one the whole time treating him bad, and he was projecting it all onto him. So, like, if you were to believe the unreliable narrator, and so that scene, because that was the only time that I'm like, it was so out of character that I'm like, oh, then, and my other idea is that maybe he would, because then he comes back in with an axe and he swings it at him. So my idea is that he was essentially kind of faking that he was, so beaten because he was beaten almost to death, and he says, "You're killing me," and then he starts to bark like a dog. But him, like Robert Pattinson, kind of turned into William Defoe's character in that moment. He felt like it. I mean, that's what it seemed like. So that's why I'm thinking: is this him showing who he really is? Or is it just, like I said, this kind of unreliable stuff?
That is interesting because, like, let's put it in perspective. Like, William Defoe is strong and stoic as long as he believes that he can get back off of this lighthouse and actually make it back to civil society.
I don't even think he's trying to get off the lighthouse, though.
Right?
Yeah,
maybe he wants to stay there.
He's like, don't leave me, and he breaks the boat.
Yeah, I don't think.
But see, he breaks the boat, but he says Robert Pattinson did it. So again, what I'm saying is, there are two ways to read it. One is William Defoe is like, we keep order, we'll get paid, we'll end up going back, there'll be beautiful women when we come back with 9 months' pay, there's going to be all this merriment when we get back to the mainland. And then we find out that it appears that Defoe is the one destroying their chances of getting off the island, and Robert Pattinson wants nothing but to leave. But then it seems like, well, if Robert Pattinson was the one that actually sabotaged the boat, he's the one that doesn't want to leave. Like, and William Defoe is like, I no longer can leave this island. Like, I'm now entirely at the mercy of this one psychotic, manic person who's chasing me with the axe. Like, you're right though, Bryce. Like, it does seem out of character, but in the sense that if it was an unreliable narrator, it's hard to know, because I like what you said. Like, if this was all just a vision in Robert Pattinson's head, like, how did he end up outside the way he did? Like, it is crazy. Like, the movie has a lot of different readings. So far, that's the one that makes the most narrative structural sense, just because after that moment, everything starts to get really wonky, really, really
well,
quick.
and that's where, to me, I can make sense of it. But let me say something else too, where I had and I know we're not getting to our beefs yet, but it kind of goes along with what we're talking about here, because, like, I travel for work, right? And I have always, I mean, even before I did the current job that I'm in now, I traveled, and I was gone weeks, months at a time, away from home, away from family, not completely isolated like this, mind you, but it's 4 weeks. Come on. Like, I think the whole thing would be if they're like I recently just saw a movie called Moon. If you haven't, okay.
Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell. So he's by himself for 3 years. So I could start to believe your mind's gonna play tricks, and as a viewer, as a watcher, it's a lot more believable that you're gonna have, after 4 weeks, really, this guy's seeing mermaids. Like, I was
wait, Bryce, you would love Cube. After like a day or so, they all start cannibalizing each other.
Yeah. I'm like.
It's like a day, and they're like, I'm hungry, let's eat this guy. And they're like, oh my God.
Even if they, I've looked forward to going home. I mean, I have an early flight tomorrow morning. I'm looking forward to going home. Like, there were certain things like, why would you get that drunk right before? Even if you've never drunk, I don't think I could get you 3 drunk before going home, after 4 weeks, I mean, you're not going to throw any principles, and that's where I felt like there were such major breaks in character. And then after 4 weeks, and even if they overslept, I mean, let's be realistic. How long are they going to oversleep? Maybe a day. I've had some really bad hangovers in my life, so maybe you sleep another 12 hours, you miss your boat. That sucks. Okay. Now we need to look at rations. We need to look at this. We need to look at that. But just that sheer cliff, all of a sudden, that they drop off after 4 weeks and 3 days or whatever.
Chris, you're not factoring in the tormented soul of the seagull sailor that was brutally murdered by Robert Pattinson. Again, you have to factor in the curse in all of this, and all your calculations.
That, like I said, a lot of it's dubious, and we don't actually know exactly how long. I know you said it. I don't know.
He punches the clock, by the way, which I thought was a really good motif of time gets fudged in this movie.
I've also
literally
seen
punches
people
the clock.
Go
I thought that was a good way of
crazy
saying that time
in a
gets
short
distorted.
amount of time. I mean, just think about COVID. I mean, people were running to the store and like.
Oh yeah, we're out of
buying
toilet paper
everything.
again. Like, anyone notice that? It's a good time to be
Well,
alive,
and,
dude.
and
I love America.
we had a hurricane in Texas, and gas was sold out everywhere, and it was just like, and I just think in a day people go kind of bananas. So I don't know.
Would you say we all go a little mad sometimes?
If they think they're gonna die, like people do crazy things. I don't know. I don't see it as a crazy thing. I can see your side of it, but I think people are absolutely insane.
Also, when
you're not
on
insane.
the island,
You're human.
When you're also on the island with William Defoe, I would lose my effing mind so quick.
Yeah, dude, he's just
Yes.
farting. He's farting all the time and peeing in your
Yes.
face, and that's disgusting. Oh, how about throwing your piss and shiz in the wind and it comes back in your
Yes.
face?
Okay,
That
but
I think I would lose my mind over
so
that. That was so gross.
that was this. But how far did the dude walk? Like he could have dumped it at any point in time. So like I look at it and like there were things like that where artistically or for visual you do it, but like practical, no one would have ever done that. And that's
really?
that's
Maybe William Defoe. Maybe William Defoe is like, you can't bring it close to the house because then you bring all kinds of problems. Yeah, like disease and stuff, right? Yeah.
Once I spat in the wrong direction, and the wind blew it right back in my face. Like I do stupid stuff all the time. So I mean,
but you're not working for 4 weeks. And in that situation, if you were like this guy's taking
The wind changed though.
No,
to
yeah,
be
the
fair.
wind changed. It blew it upwards, and
He is
he
an
threw
idiot.
it down.
He is an idiot
okay,
though.
well,
And
I
they-
mean, you can
to justify.
I'm
it.
just saying,
Hey, hey, would you say that Robert Pattinson is a dullard? Jordan says no. You could have fooled me.
Well,
That's
I'm just
great
saying,
what he asked
if
him.
he was a whistler and I was alone on the island, I'd have killed him. Yeah, sorry. If people like
Yeah.
to whistle, I'd...
We
Or
have
if,
roommates.
if,
Robert,
or
lucky
if
for
he
you, buddy.
chewed with his mouth open, Jordan would have murdered him
yes,
very quickly.
I would have murdered him with an axe.
True.
Right in the face.
I love the farting and the uncontrollable peeing or whatever. And there's a great visual when the water's leaking through the house and he's peeing in the bucket and it's like moving around. I don't know why I thought that was so funny. The latrine, it's like bobbing in the water and he's like trying to pee in this moving target. I just thought that was a great visual. But great visuals.
Just
great
don't
music.
be trapped on an island with me, Bryce, and you'll be good.
Jordan would be like, oh, you don't think I could go crazy in 4 weeks? How about 2 days? Just give me 2 days. Hell, the toilet paper's gone. Oh my gosh.
if we were ever in that situation, we just won't talk about movies you like and I don't, or vice versa. And then I think we'd be all right. I mean,
Please tell me again how you feel about the Amazing Spider-Man.
can I mention one other thing? Like, and again, I paid close attention because this bothered me the first time and it bothered me more again the second time. The finding the figurine, okay? Like, he doesn't sit on it. It's his first time unrolling this mat, supposedly. So please, if you guys can enlighten me on how this makes sense. He's just sitting there and then randomly happens to move his jacket, reach right into the hole and pull this thing out. It would be one thing if he sat on it and was like, oh, what is in my mattress? This is weird. Oh, it's a figurine. He doesn't. He sits down. He's, Willem Dafoe, finishes his pee, walks out, farts a couple times, and then he's sitting there, and then he like moves his jacket and goes right for it, like as if he knew where it was from the beginning. Which I thought would be something like, oh, okay, maybe this alludes to the fact that he'd been there before. This was all in his head. He put whatever and never touches back on that again. But watch this scene. He has no reason to look in that hole or to even know that it was there. And all of a sudden he's just like, oh, hole.
What's the matter,
Here's
Bryce?
the
Haven't you ever?
It was just little things like that throughout where
Maybe the siren was calling to him.
and here's the thing,
That
in a movie where the director is clearly trying to, like you guys were saying, immerse you, to make it feel real, to make it feel like you're at a snapshot today. When you're trying so hard to do that in a movie, and then you throw completely unbelievable things in there, you lose me. And that's my problem with it.
Well, but I see those are things though that I disagree with. I think people do. I mean, maybe we're just different personalities and stuff, but that's just...
Jordan sticks his fingers into all kinds of holes.
Randomly know a hole appears somewhere and then you stick your hand in it. Like,
Yeah, you just got to see what's inside it, It might be the box
getting
from
to know
Dune.
your environment, I guess, I don't know.
again, if he would have been laying in the bed at night and then finding it, okay, believable. But like,
I don't know, because I feel like that's more of a... Like, I don't know. I get what you're saying, but also I feel like that's such a more childish way to show it. It's like, oh, ow, something hurt me. What's under me? Like, I don't know.
Or not.
Maybe not. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know what I'm saying.
It's not like it has to hurt you. I'm just.
Well, no, but I'm saying, like, if for film, I don't feel like that's something we necessarily need to. It's kind of like the Star Wars thing. It's like, oh, how is he getting food? Oh, he's milking some animal's. Like, that stuff I don't care about. Like,
How does Luke Skywalker stay alive on this island? Oh, green milk from this mammal's. Yeah, very good.
I'm just saying there's details of, like, this is how things work. And when it comes to film, I'm like, why does it need to work that way? Like, I don't know. You see what I'm saying?
But I feel like for a film, and obviously we can agree to disagree here, but I think for a film to be doing and doing all the things you're saying that it does, that it needs to be consistent. And that's the issue I have, is that it's not like we're going to be so realistic with certain aspects of the lighthouse, of all the chores he does with the water dripping, the clock, all the little intricacies with the keys and the oil. And we're going to be so particular about that. But such a major piece of this movie is that figurine. And it's just like, oh, it's here. I found it. Like, to me, it's like, if you're going to be that picky about, we want to make this to where you have those things where you can truly say, like, oh, what's real, what's not, whatever. And then you throw something in there on such a pivotal thing. I'm not talking about, oh, why were his shoelaces tied this way in this scene and not in that. I mean, I'm not talking about minor stuff. I'm just saying, to me, this was a pretty big set piece that was entirely overlooked.
Right. And he breaks it because he claims that this is the reason he's cursed, right? And then, but it's interesting because William Defoe is convinced because of the seagull. So I think it's interesting that he thinks it's the figurine that's trying to curse him. He's like, yeah, well, your spell's not going to work because I broke it, remember?
Yeah.
And it's like, was that William Defoe's mermaid? Because I think we were to believe that it was the previous lighthouse keeper, the one-eyed keeper, right? Yeah. It was his figurine, and I guess he left it there in the bed for someone else to find. Kind of like the Jumanji board game. It just finds you, It's the beating drum, Bryce. We didn't hear it, but it's the beating drums that, called to him. Tore out his mattress. Oh, what's this? I think I'll Oh,
so just to be the quote I was going to do when we first started, I was just going to make some weird noise, but I was like, that might be a little too much.
No, I thought of the same thing. I thought it was funny. Just making his sound was like,
yeah.
Or even freak at the very end, just like the screaming with like the noise blaring, just like goes all white. So
I love
lastly,
that.
I did really like that, and the distortion they did on his scream, the audio wise,
it was so manic.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, and I would say Robert Pattinson and William Defoe were swinging for the fences, and I was surprised at how much he could hold the weight. But you're right, I think William Defoe steals the show, but I'm so impressed with this young and upcoming actor, Robert Pattinson, that can hold his weight when it's just the two of them, and they both can play off each other so well. Like, I would never think to pair these two actors together, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine anyone else pulling this off.
I mean, one thing that was really cool, I mean, I don't want to be all negative, but I mean, like, I did like how there were so many unflattering angles. Like that one scene where Robert Pattinson wakes up and like the angle is like straight up his nose and I mean, like the whole thing, it's like, no, these Hollywood actors are, very, oh, this is my good side and the lighting's got to be, and like that all just went out the window. It's like, we're going to pick the most unflattering angle of this dude to show. And
the onesie underwear just looks so dirty and grungy, and the overalls.
I liked a lot of that, where, as, looking at the way that they approached the film and making it. I wasn't a fan of the aspect ratio. I wasn't a fan of that.
Really?
I wasn't
a huge fan.
I wasn't a fan of the black and white part. Again, I can see it. I'm like, I don't know who this guy thinks he is, Zack Snyder, but like there were certain things about it that.
Wait, does Zack Snyder do black and white in his films? Or I guess I'm thinking of 300.
No, he did their aspect ratio in the last.
Justice League. He also did a black and white version of the Justice League.
Oh, that's right.
That's hilarious. Now I'm interested. That's hilarious.
I did get very Zack Snyder vibes from it, and I wasn't a big fan of Zack Snyder doing that either. Like the whole reason I got a big screen, fill it up.
Well,
what I mean?
But Robert Eggers actually shot with the old school camera that had that aspect ratio. That's why it was in that.
But still, that's a conscious choice. I get what Bryce is saying. I get what you're saying, Jordan. Like, to me, I even love the scene, but there's like a fourth wall break at the very beginning. They walk up to the lighthouse. It's just
love that.
Robert Pattinson
Reminded me of some
and
older films.
William Defoe. Yeah, it just seemed like almost like a captain's log where they're like, here were the people. Like when you watch those old timey tiny videos, like winding the video, and they're like, you see the people all standing there, they're all plotting, and it's like really creepy because it's like if they were winding too fast, the images were like playing too quick, so people's movements really jumpy. So this one's like still really beautiful to watch because it's still very high def, but it's still very weird to have like such a small box and black and white video.
Did you guys get the impression too, whenever they showed like the background, the scenery, it looked drawn. It didn't look like it was filmed. It looked like it was drawn, like those old textbooks back in the colonial times, whenever they show the old diagrams of pictures and lighthouses and all that. Watch it again, or if you do watch it again, look at the back. It looks drawn. It doesn't look filmed. And so I'm actually curious as if that was really filmed or not, or if that was put in post-production as drawings, because it definitely has that artistic drawn feel to it.
Was that the establishment shot with the ship coming upon the island of the lighthouse?
Even when he's pushing the wheelbarrow and he's doing his chores, the background, it looks drawn in. Like when you see the lighthouse in the back and the house and all that, it literally looks like those old, colonial
like you said,
drawings.
maybe
Did
they
they
changed
find
that.
this lighthouse, or did they actually build one? I can't remember. What did they do?
No, I think he built it, but
He built the lighthouse.
yeah. But they did shoot on location and in that weather. So I don't know.
I'd be curious to know that.
I'm just saying they didn't green screen it, but
and maybe it's the aspect ratio and the black and white. Like sometimes I did find it interesting when with the clouds. I do remember thinking the clouds felt a lot closer. So maybe that's the effect you were talking about, Bryce, where the aspect ratio almost doesn't lend itself to a wider screen. So it's just like you're kind of like in a tunnel vision where the things you're seeing on screen just like even the scenes where they walk up and down with the wheelbarrow. I do remember thinking like this is such like a rigorous, like everything's so muddy. There's no cobblestone paths. It's just like if you walk this path too many times, it's gonna get so muddy, like you're not gonna be able to walk through this. That's what I kept thinking. Like anyway, it just that goes back to the chores. I just love seeing the upkeep of a lighthouse. What a terrible job. Man, these men are true men, and I guess it got the better of them though because they ended up killing each other. So I guess job not well done. They're not true men. They're animals like dogs. Would you guys recommend The Lighthouse? Oh boy, I don't know what to say about this one. This is the most difficult, conflicted I've ever felt on recommending a movie.
Yeah, it's the same as The Witch. Like weird. I have a hard time recommending them to people unless they like art housey or A24 films. So
good point. If you like art housey, The Shining meets, I said Brokeback Mountain earlier, but it's not really like that.
Oh my gosh, not even.
There's that scene though. No, it is The Shining set in a lighthouse. That's literally the best I could give it. Like it is the most like The Shining I've ever seen in a movie, and meets The Witch. Yeah, Robert Eggers' other film. So, Price, would you recommend this movie?
So, to be honest, I actually would. Even though I didn't care for it, I do realize that I think I would recommend it to certain people, and I would probably preface it like this: Hey, you'd probably dig it. I didn't, but you're into those kind of films. You'd probably see some redeeming qualities in it. I wouldn't want to watch it again, but I'm not upset that I did see it. Like there are movies where I've seen it where I'm like, oh man, I wish I never saw that. I'm glad I saw it. I
can't wait. You're going to be at a party somewhere and they're going to be a pretentious film snobs and they're all like, oh, what's your favorite movie of the year? And you'd be like, oh yes, I like The Lighthouse.
By far, Winifred for sure. It was the Lighthouse. Defoe is brilliant. He's just truly mesmerizing. To be honest, I would recommend it, but I would recommend it to a certain crowd of people that I know would enjoy it. Would I recommend it to my wife? Absolutely not. I'd be like, babe, you wouldn't like this.
Amen. You won't like this.
You would turn it off halfway through, and
Not even gorgeous Robert Pattinson can be gorgeous in the movie. They take everything from him.
I will say I've never thought he could act, and I was impressed with his ability. Not enough to look forward to him as Batman, but I was impressed at his ability in this film to do something more than just sparkle in the sunlight.
Yeah. Bryce, have you ever seen a movie called Good Time by the Duffer Brothers?
No.
Or Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler?
You probably wouldn't like it because it's good.
I've seen Uncut Gems. Ba-bump.
Yeah.
Oh, he's bringing out the gloves now.
Yeah. Have you seen Uncut Gems? Did you care for that one at all?
So there were parts of it
stressful.
there were parts of it that I really, really liked.
Yeah.
Overall, it's probably a 6 out of 10 for me.
It's just
but
like that, yeah.
Yeah, Good Time stars Robert Pattinson, and it was the movie that sold me on him being Batman, because it's a very pulse-pounding, action-packed movie, and it's very stressful like Uncut Gems, but it does have more of a movie narrative, like plot structure, as opposed to Uncut Gems that was like probably one of the most stressful movies I've ever seen, out there.
They're almost one and the same, in my opinion. But.
Similar, but again, it's stressful because of plot structure. It's not stressful because of character choices. Well, that's hard to say because a lot of the plot structure results as character choices and the stupidity of this character.
I really enjoy enjoy movies where I can like or at least empathize with the characters. And that's one thing with Uncut Gems that I really struggled with because
a horrible
it's just
horrible.
It was hard for me.
He's an anti-hero.
It was hard for me to root for him. But at the same time, there was enough going on where you kind of want to see him succeed just because of the situation. So I mean, stress. Yeah. That movie for me was a bit of a struggle in that sense.
Yeah, and so like I said, take that with a grain of salt. Robert Pattinson in the movie called Good Time, directed by the Duffer Brothers. It's very similar, or excuse me, Safdie Brothers. No,
Safdie Brothers.
It is the Safdie Brothers, the Duffer
Brothers did
Stranger Things. Yeah, I know.
I do have that movie on my wish list on Vudu, so I'm aware of it. I just haven't seen it yet.
It's called Good Time. Deceptively, it's kind of like I would call it a stressful time. That was a movie I made my wife watch, and I was like, I will never make you watch another Safdie Brothers movie again. So she did not watch Uncut Gems with me, so I watched that on my own. So I love it. This is the hardest movie to recommend, but I'm like kind of like The Witch. I'm like, it's like a car crash. You can't look away. You should look away, but you just have to look. That's this movie. Like, don't let it pass you by. Check it out. It's crazy. So we end every movie podcast by sharing movies that we've seen lately, movies that we're looking forward to seeing. Bryce, have you seen any movies lately?
I mentioned it earlier, Moon. I watched that just recently.
Sam Rockwell's performance is awesome.
That movie, I mean, wait, Jordan, did you like it?
I loved it, yeah.
Because I really liked it too. So at least that could be our breakfast at Tiffany's, okay? Then I said, what about Moon with, and then, at least that's one thing we got, right?
What about breakfast? Breakfast at Tiffany's sucks, by the way. I watched that movie. That movie sucks.
It's
Bare Naked Ladies don't know what
crazy.
they're talking about. That movie sucks. That movie just ends.
But no, so Moon, I watched. I really enjoyed it. I mean, Sam Rockwell's. I've always liked him as an actor, but that movie, that was good.
Another good space movie with Sam Rockwell. What's it called now? I can't think of it. It's the spoof space movie. What's it called? Not Guardians of the Galaxy. Galaxy Quest.
Have you seen that one?
Oh, yeah. That's great.
It's a great movie with Guy. His name is Guy, but he doesn't have a last name. So he's fearful he's going to die. My character was never given a last name. So I'm going to die. Guy, you have a last name. Do I? So good.
Yeah.
Gosh, Sam Rockwell's so brilliant. That's great. And are you looking forward to seeing any movies? Batman, have we convinced you that you're excited to see Batman now?
I mean, as a Batman fan, I'm going to see it. I'm just,
Let him surprise you like Heath Ledger did as the Joker. Did you have any reservations about Heath Ledger as Joker?
No, not
really?
not at all.
Interesting.
I was really looking forward to it. So I'm really looking forward. I've been waiting to watch Dune with my wife.
We all saw it.
So I'm going to see that tomorrow.
Definitely go see it.
And
awesome.
So I'm looking forward to that. And Eternals. I'm actually really November 9th, 5th, whatever comes out. I'm really looking forward to seeing that too. I'm hoping they right the ship from the debacle that was Shang-Chi because I really was disappointed with that. Everyone, I don't know, for some reason I think it's like the greatest movie. I don't know. But I guess we have a minority in the lead cast, and everyone has to love it, or you're racist or something. But like,
It's true.
I didn't care for it. I didn't care for it at all.
It's probably no. Don't worry. My first time I got superhero fatigue was Black Panther, and again, it's still a fine movie. I just remember thinking like, isn't this like Iron Man or like it was just like any other film? And for the first time, I'm like, this is too formulaic.
Yeah,
Like
I thought
they just overhyped
I think we
it.
talked about this before, and the last time I was on, like, Black Panther was I didn't like.
We just
it
like to
either.
remind people that we have prejudices toward Black Panther and Shang-Chi.
Now, if it was if it was White Panther or Sean Williams, I would have loved them both. But we throw Black Panther and Shang-Chi. Forget it. I can't. You lost me. I'm kidding.
I just couldn't find enough relatability with the Asian lead. I just don't see him as a hero.
Exactly.
That is the craziest thing. Anyway, whatever. Like, my favorite action hero right now is Denzel Washington's son, J.D. Washington. Watch him in Tenet.
Dude,
that guy
Tenet,
needs to be an action star.
It's amazing. It's such a good movie.
Did you like Tenet?
Oh, I loved it.
Loved it.
Well, I
don't
loved
know
it,
what-
but I didn't really care for him. Like,
Get out, Jordan. What's your problem? You didn't like J.D. Washington?
the movie was amazing, but that's for
For whatever
Christopher
reason,
Nolan.
Jordan doesn't like Denzel Washington, but now he likes Denzel
Well,
Washington. Jordan
I
had a
mean,
love-hate
to
relationship
say the
with Denzel.
movie is great, but he did. I mean, in Jordan's defense, and I'm trying to get him back on my side so he lets me back on the podcast. But in Jordan's,
You're like, oh,
in
yes, I agree with everything you're saying.
In his defense, he really. I mean, it wasn't so much about him. You could have put
Yes.
could have put anybody in that role that
Yes.
can halfway decently act, and they would have
That's
done a
fair.
good job. You know,
That's fair.
But I
But
do
his
really like him.
action,
Yeah, I do really like
beating
him.
those guys up, like, I've never seen someone fight with such ferocity. I was like, that is so kick. Like, I was like, I'd love to see him go against John Wick.
That's great. I give all credit to Christopher Nolan, though.
I'm just saying, J.D. Washington, you need to be our next action star, dude. Like, I mean, because Denzel Washington's getting too old.
He just doesn't have as much charisma as his dad. His dad is like...
Okay. Right? That's my impression of Denzel. I could say okay, but that's it. I know how he says okay. That's how he says okay. Okay.
Ready? Fill in the blank. My
Nugget.
Just kidding. Hey,
Likewise.
I'm 22% black, so I can say it.
That's why
I have the documentation to prove it. So
Ancestry.com.
yeah,
folks.
exactly.
Oh man, this has been so fun. Bryce, where can people check out your music?
They can check out my music on SoundCloud. Just look for Bryce. And actually, one thing I didn't mention before, so because it's so hard to find Bryce, because there's other people named Bryce, I'm updating it. It will be I'm going to call the project Done Messed Up. So you can see it at SoundCloud and then Done Messed Up. So just like you done messed up, Aaron, it's like that. So Done Messed Up is going to be the name of the project. And then my YouTube channel, right now it's Bryce, but it'll be switched over probably by the end of next week to Done Messed Up. So it's easier to find my music and stuff.
Check it out. Awesome.
I'm excited.
All right, everybody, leave us an email, futromovies@gmail.com. Tell us a movie that you'd like us to review in the future or a movie that we reviewed in the past. What did we miss? What is your favorite art house film? Not movie, but film. What is your favorite motion picture? The cinema. And leave us an email, leave us a 5-star review, and check us out on Patreon. Check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and all the social media sites. This has been Future Hid Movie Gems signing out. Peace.
Bye.
Peace.
Hark! Can't do it like he does. Hark, Triton.